Hi, this is Peter.
Hi, this is Sandra.
And we are medievalist.net.
And today we're going to talk to you about
Game of Thrones.
Can you say that in the same voice that you say gorgeous? But anyhow.
Well, should I do it in a cuter?
No.
Okay.
Game of Thrones is not cute. It's sexy.
Was
really
it
sexy.
Was it sexy? It was like.
Well, there was some interesting.
It's like 3 sex scenes in a marriage.
There we go. But what I have to say is, I'll get to that too. I actually really enjoyed this episode. I did have one wish. It was good because it was compact. I kind of wish they spent a little bit more time on Sam, because I thought there was some interesting things going on there. He's with the girl and the baby. He gets attacked by one of the others.
Yeah, that's the little bit of fantasy. That's the actual fantasy part of this whole series.
Right, and stabs him in the back with the obsidian dagger. He shatters, and then that's sort of.
And then he promptly runs away without picking up the dagger.
Right, he's an epic Dungeons and Dragons fail for any of you who play D&D. It's a horrible fail. He left his +2 dagger or whatever behind him, but. I wish they had kind of explored that, thrown in a little bit more. But it was a really interesting scene and a good way to end the show. But I think most of the action for us is in one of two places, really, in King's Landing and with Daenerys and Yunkai.
Where shall we start?
We'll start with Daenerys. So, what did you think of the whole thing with the second sons?
It wasn't. I don't think it went off as well as it could have. These mercenaries show up and they meet, and they basically, they're kind of, we don't care, we're gonna rape you anyways, that kind of stuff will make you a slave, and they're boorish, and then there's the one guy that's not.
Well, they're mercenaries.
But
they're like brawn on crack.
Yeah, but the one that guy's not, he winds up taking the other 2 guys out, and now...
The guy who looks like he's off a Fabio romance cover?
Yeah.
It
wasn't... It didn't do anything for me, and it's not like I'm thinking Daenerys is going to be really charmed by this guy.
I thought it was really interesting. I kind of liked the whole scene, because, he sneaks in and you're like, oh no, he's going to kill Dany. Mm-hmm. And then he's like, but you are so beautiful. Here are 3 heads, or whatever. Or 2 heads. And I thought it was, I thought it was interesting that, how that went down, because it could have gone very badly for her.
Oh yeah.
She seems to have horseshoes up her butt, so, mother of dragons and all that. But I have to say this, and I don't know how you feel, but I really enjoy watching all the scenes where Dany negotiates. Anytime she negotiates with a foreign ruler, they're like, and we will offer you 5 gold. And then she's like, suck it. I'm going to kill you all and take your stuff and free your slaves. And she's Abraham Lincoln in a dress. She's awesome.
She does a very good queen.
Yes, you know what? Of all the characters on this show, Cersei and all the ladies and queens, Rob's queenly wife, Margaery even, Catelyn, they're all really crappy rulers, really poor decision makers. And Dany, who's the least experienced of any of these women in playing the game, is like a natural leader.
Yeah, I think.
You notice that?
Yeah, I think she is of all the women that we see. She is the only kind of one
and she started off really timid. Remember?
Yeah. She's one that she's developed, and she commands respect.
Yeah, she does.
Wherever all the other women that we see,
they're failed in some way,
or they're or they're kind of conniving, right? Mm-hmm. That's the kind of female where this one is someone you can actually root behind, right? Like we can't really go Cersei.
Like
right?
Rob's wife really isn't doing anything. She's just pregnant and rolling around in bed with him. Catelyn's made some really piss poor decisions that have cost Rob, so she's not great. Cersei's a horrible queen, or a horrible queen regent, or whatever you want to call her. Just
and Sansa, well,
ridiculous. Sansa, we don't even want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. And then you have Margaery, who, although I think she's really smart because she's been trained well by Lady Olenna Redwyn. So I think she's very smart and she's up and coming and ambitious, but I still don't think that Marjorie's clever and she's cunning.
Yeah, that's the word.
But she's not a bad person, but she knows how to play the game, but I still think Dany does circles around her in terms of
she's not
natural leadership. Without the BS and the games, she's just like, free the slaves, do what I ask, join my army, or you're all dead. She just doesn't play games. She doesn't play.
Marjorie's good at politics. Daenerys is good at leadership. That's how I can see it. So.
I wish Machiavelli, she's like the Machiavelli prince thing, trying to like connect it here, but it's not really working. But I really like Dany's scenes for that reason, because I find, although it's not all sexy and exciting like some of the other stuff going on, I enjoy watching her interact with people and do queenly things.
Well, let's talk about another kind, I guess.
What do you think about the whole scene with Stannis
and
Melisandre and Gendry and the whole leeches and blood and?
I actually cared more for Stannis talking with Davos. That was actually a really good scene where they have this kind of man-to-man talk.
Yeah, and he comes down and tells him what he plans to do, and Davos kind of, it's like, so of all the times that you could come down here and talk to me, you came today. Why? Why? Because you wanted me to tell it like it is.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
And I know you're not that kind of guy. So, which I think actually ends up working, because Melisandre doesn't end up killing Gendry. She just ends up putting leeches on him.
Yes, then killing leeches. So.
Right.
Although that's kind of cruel too. Poor leeches.
No, not really. But I thought that was a weird scene.
Well, it's another kind of.
What was the line? What was the bar pickup line? I'm gonna ride you like death or something.
Come fight death with me, I think.
That is the best. So after the show, I'm scrolling through Twitter, because I'm always scrolling through Twitter, and one of my friends on there, she's like, best bar pickup line ever. What was it?
Come face death with me.
Come face death.
Something
come
like that.
Ride death with me or something. I just was dying of laughter. I'm like, Melisandre just nailed the best bar pickup line ever. Come ride death with me, and then sat on him and rode him like death. And then jumped off him and threw leeches on him and tied him to... It was the strangest sex scene ever. It was kind of like, we're sort of going to have sex, then I'm going to jump off and throw some leeches on you. It was just utterly bizarre.
What did you make the kind of sex scenes that they've had lately, I guess, as a woman?
I mean, that one was just weird.
Yeah.
It wasn't really anything. It was sort of like, we just started having... She didn't really have sex with him. She, started to have sex with him and then tied him up and jumped off really quickly. It was kind of a non-event. I really didn't like the mercenary... Sorry, I have to go back to the Dany scene.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking you wanted to go back to.
here's the thing. I know I have to suspend my disbelief because Martin's trying to portray this rough and gritty pseudo-medieval world that he's envisioned that isn't, like I was saying last week, the whole idea of a Disney medieval. So we get it, okay, George? If you're out there listening, we get it. It's gritty, it's medieval, it's dark, it's sexy, it's all these things. But I just think some of it's like thrown in there for Hollywood's sake, not for the gritty value. Like the whole scene with the mercenaries and the whore and slapping her, and just, you know, when they come up to negotiate with Dany and he's like, sorry, pardon my French, he's like, I want to see your cunt. Sorry. But it's just really coarse. Like, I'm pretty vulgar, you can ask Peter. But it's like, he's nods and rolls his eyes. But even for me, I find some of the scenes are unnecessarily vulgar. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but they're just almost like forcing it.
Well,
like the mercenary thing with the take off your clothes and la 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 la, and then the woman with the coins, the prostitute whore, whatever.
This show has had a long history. The whole term sex position came from Game of Thrones. So it's always been there where, for one reason or another, they think that they have to throw in sex. Just, you know, and the mercenary thing is kind of perfect. They're having this conversation and they just have the girl there as eye candy, to, you know, while people chat. You know, for something, because otherwise you just have three guys talking, and they've determined that isn't enough to you know, get the reader or the viewer.
It's been a long time since I've read the series. Like, I mean, years. I read the books when they first came out, so it's been a long time. I remember a lot of gratuitous sex and stuff, but like you're saying, I don't recall scenes like that with an extra prop woman. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I recall very graphic, gruesome things in Martin's writing, but I don't recall like three guys talking and, hey, we're just going to stick a whore in here as a prop.
And like last week, you know, Theon Greyjoy, I guess he's
the torture porn.
And by the way, it's probably one of the best aspects of this show. We didn't see Theon get tortured this week. Just saying. But like last week, you know, they just brought in two nameless girls, just to have, you know, get them naked in front of him, and so they can, you know, just move along the plot, and just to get that going. Like
Martin wrote that though. You realize? No, I mean, like
I'm not sure if he wrote that scene. He actually did write that scene.
That's my point. Is that was his show of this season. And I hated it, that scene. I just thought it was crap. But back to this episode, you're asking me about the sex scene. Some of them, like Melisandre's, was just weird. I didn't mind it. I get there's some gritty sex scenes going on and stuff. But you know, I just find like that there's just some unnecessary things. You know what I'm saying? Just kind of really coarse and just pointless. So, but going into King's Landing, I mean, what did you think of Tyrion's wedding?
Sex, there was no sex. This was the saddest wedding I've ever watched on TV. So
I really loved Tyrion getting drunk, and in the middle of his wedding, telling Joffrey off. That was priceless.
Only if he felt like it went through with it, right? Like Joffrey was in fine form today of being the evil, terrible human being that he was. Tyrion did a good job. Tywin did a good job, just being the cranky father who's just trying to get his way. I think like, and it was. I enjoyed that. Like I enjoyed. Is it kind of a train wreck?
It was a massive train wreck, What I really enjoyed were the small scenes. I usually hate small scenes because they're there for a split second.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're kind of like, what was the point of that? But there are two small scenes that I really enjoyed that involved Cersei. One where Loras is like about to launch into what's a Game of Thrones typical thing. My father once told me. And she's like, nobody gives a crap what your father told you, and just walks away from him. And I wanted to jump up and high five her through my monitor. I was like, yeah! Because, no, I thought that was a priceless scene. Because I actually thought...
That was a really good scene, actually, because, yeah, we thought it was going to be...
There was like a launch into a story about the Tyrells and stuff, and she's just like, nobody gives a rat's ass about what your father says. I loved it. I thought that was a small scene. And then the other scene I loved with her was the scene where she's talking to Margaery and then she's telling her the story that is being sung by the bards and explaining the fall of this house that went up against her father. And at one point she turns to her, if you ever call me sister again, I will strangle you in your sleep. Again, I wanted to jump up, reach into my monitor and high five her. I thought it was just like really good. Her nasty today was just in fine form.
Yeah, she was
like bang on.
She was not happy today, and I like how Margaery was just.
Yeah, very.
The whole way through, just.
Yeah, Margaery was like, "Oh, this is so uncomfortable. Oh, I really screwed that up." Yeah, she sort of missed a beat there, and Cersei kind of dick punched her, I guess you could say, verbally, but of course. The whole Tyrion's wedding was a complete and utter train wreck. I actually got irritated. I hated what Joffrey did to him with the removing the stool.
Yeah, that just.
I thought it was just such a jerk thing to do. Like, I know he's a bastard and he's mean and he's nasty, but it was just almost that kind of like to the hilt nasty.
I kind of expect that from Joffrey, right? So that's his character. That's his pure character, like just to do stuff like that.
That's why I enjoyed when he tried to, but he's pretty evil. But like I think, when he's like, well, I'm gonna come visit your bed and have these two men hold you down and I'm gonna rape you. Yeah, he's just horrific. He's astounding. So when Tyrion, throws that dagger into the table and it's like, you're gonna bed your wife with a wooden dick or something, implying that he's gonna cut it off. I thought it was like the rage on Joffrey's face. Joff was just like losing it, and I was sitting there going, yeah, Tyrion! I don't know.
It was a good scene, and like Tywin has to kind of smooth things over, right? Like he has to, do his job at that point. But it ends off Tyrion and Sansa don't have sex, which is coming at first for Game of Thrones. But
what is that? What do you think that tells you about Tyrion's character?
Like, it was. I think he realized she was 14.
He just doesn't want to force a woman.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, it's like he kind of knew it was her duty to do it. It was his duty. That's what we have to do. But you're 14. Can't do it. It's like, and he promises.
He's the only Lannister with standards. Although Jaime's starting to get back into standards, Tyrion's really the only Lannister with a moral compass.
Which is why we like Tyrion. I think everyone loves Tyrion. He's kind of like. He has that bit of evil in him, but he's really a good guy down.
And it's cool because Sansa's like, "What if I never?" And he's like, "Well, so starts my watch." He's not gonna press it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool. Like you said, it's the one scene where you're expecting sex, and then nothing happens. But it's not a bad thing. It's kind of cool that he's so. After everything that happened, and the train wreck that was his wedding, and Joff, and his father, and Shay, and all of the mess that he has to go through, and the humiliation during the vows.
It ends on a moral high note.
It ends on a moral high note. And it just shows that even all the crap that he's gone through, he still is, and this is no pun intended, head and shoulders above the rest of his family. Like, seriously, he's just, like, he has more morality in his pinky finger than Tywin, Cersei, and the rest of them put together.
It's, and, again, it was a really, I think overall, I really enjoyed this episode. They did move through character to character. Like, we had a bit of Arya in it, maybe a couple other, but not all the characters. Certainly, Jon Snow was in there. Robb Stark, he was in there.
I like that scene, actually, going back to Arya and the Hound, where she goes to bash in his skull, and he's like, kind of one eye open, he's like, well, one shot, but if you miss, I'm going to break both your hands. And then they pan to the next scene, and she's just pissed. She's sitting on the horse going, I should have taken that shot.
He could have told her that, hey, I'm actually going to take you to your mom and your brother. But earlier on, it's not, instead of getting all that rage up at her, she's like, hey, I'm actually going to save you, girl.
Yeah, I think it was, it was interesting though that, when she's like, what about King's Landing and the Lannisters, and he says something that I won't say here, but it's rather choice. He just kind of gives them the old Ross and friends. Anyhow, he just sort of says, to hell with the Lannisters, to hell with King's Landing and the Queen and all that. I'm delivering you for money back to your family. Like, he's definitely done with them. I thought that was it was a good scene.
Look, I enjoy his character. I know he won't be around too, I have no idea what happens to his character. He doesn't seem like a guy that's going to be lasting years and years on this episode, on this show. So,
right.
But it was again, overall, I thought, it was a good show.
I enjoyed the episode. I really did.
I enjoyed it. There was enough time. Daenerys gets a lot of play. The King's Landing stuff that gets a lot of play. So things happen.
Really concentrated storylines this time. Totally see where everything is going with Dany. Totally see where everything's going with Tyrion and Cersei, along with some of those more humorous moments. And you get a little bit of Gendry and Arya, which were interesting scenes.
And then I'm sure we'll be next week back with Robb Stark.
Even wall, Sam's. I even with the brevity with Sam Tarly's scenes, I felt that they were interesting, especially since he ended the show with this dramatic confrontation with one of the others. I liked that. So.
Yes, it's good. It's a good reminder there's actually wars going on and fighting.
Mm-hmm. So. And I here's the one thing, like you were saying with Sam's stuff, other than Dany and her dragons, there's very little of that supernatural feel left to the show. Like when it first opened in the first season, and there were the wall and the others, and it just feels like when you see snippets of that kind of thing, that it kind of reminds you that, hey, we're watching a fantasy, which I kind of miss that aspect in the show. Sometimes it gets overly political, and I feel like I might as well be reading actual historical fiction versus fantasy. So whenever I see Dany's dragons or the others or something like that, I like those reminders. How about you?
Yeah, I think you can't it's really hard to make a kind of like a like a kind of a historical fiction based on just renaming Europe, which is a book like this like series can like degenerate into. And you want to keep that kind of fantasy elements going because it adds in just a kind of unique spice and like there's a whole different ways you don't anticipate the story going into, right? So with that note, I think we should
I think we should call it a wrap, and then we'll definitely be back next week for another sexy, leech-filled, fantastic episode of
Game of Thrones. Is that different?
Yeah.